All right, welcome back in to DOLAN'S Dugout, another edition for Monday, April 27th with your host, Steve Dolan. I'm Ramon Scott. Steve, you got a ratings grab tonight, huh?
We sure do. First of all, of course, we have Adam Paul from EC Preps with us. And tonight we have Braden Surprenant. Of course, Braden is the voice of high school football, play-by-play voice on 97.3 The Fan. Also produces Coach John Quintero's show. Now, Braden, how's everything been going lately under these circumstances for you? Everything okay?
Everything's good in terms of, of course, health and, just, having a job and being able to work, of course, and a lot to be thankful for. But, just like everybody else, it's a tough process for a lot of people right now, including myself. It sucks, just not being able to do the normal daily routine of just like your life. And, everything's adjusted right now. And I'm just, hoping that we get back to some sort of normalcy as soon as possible. But based on everybody I talked to, doctors, and based on the data that's coming out, it sounds like we got a lot more good news each and every day coming forward. And I was talking to Coach about this, even today on the broadcast. He didn't know like when sports going to come back with people at stadiums, and all I can say to that is, I'm not an expert, and I don't know, I can't tell the future, but neither can anybody else at this point. And 3 weeks ago, we didn't think we were going to have sports in 2021, and now all these big leagues are lining up, getting ready to go. I mean, we had a UFC event coming up like in a weekend and a half. Golf's getting ready to get back to going. I didn't think the beaches were going to be open anytime before May, and we already have beaches open today on April 27th. So a lot of encouraging news. I know we're not out of the woods yet, but we're getting closer every day, and I'm looking forward to the fall because every time I join you guys, we're usually talking about high school football, and that's something I really believe is going to start on time, and that's my own opinion, and everybody else can have their opinions on what happened. But I'm going to think a little bit more positively than a lot of people here, and I think we're going to be back and rolling pretty shortly here. And I think the biggest promising thing is the fact that, one, they're testing way more people now, and the percentage of people testing positive are low. And the other factor is too is they're starting to open up a lot of things, not only in parts of the country that you would think would open up soon, but even here in California, where it's a little bit more conservative in terms of their approach for letting people open faster. So a lot of positive signs, a lot of things to be excited about, and I'm ready to get back to doing my usual routine, just I'm sure like all of you guys are and everybody listening is.
Well, Braden, when you say that, you mentioned high school football. Now, my birthday is August 21st on a Friday, and that's supposed to be the first day of high school football. I'm hoping I'm sitting side by side with you at a game at wherever we might be. What's going on right now with high school football teams, though? I know you're real involved with Cathedral Catholic. What are you guys able to do right now with the players?
Basically what I know from not only Cathedral but other teams around is they're doing a lot of Zoom calls with their their positions, and they're keeping the kids involved, almost like a class type of deal, and keeping kids focused on game film and practice, and with not having a spring ball. I envision them summer workouts happening pretty on time as well. It might be in July, it might be in August, but the fact of the matter is you're not going to get spring ball. I mean, that's just it's just not going to happen because it usually happens in May, and it'd be way too. You're not going to make kids go out and do spring ball when they don't have school, during this time. So I think a lot of teams right now are doing what you can do in terms of trying to keep kids fresh and get them at least educated before the season starts. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of teams should be doing if they have the technology to do it and they have the resources to do it. I know the big schools are definitely doing that right now in terms of keeping in contact with their players, sending them workouts that they could do at home if they don't have the equipment to do it. There's a lot of things that you could build muscle with, in your backyard that you don't need necessarily weights for. So I know they're doing that type of work. I know they're doing some type of study and kind of football IQ things. But that's basically all you can do right now. I mean, you can't go on the field. You can't do any field work of any kind. I don't envision that happening until probably July. But again, when you want to think doom and gloom and nothing's going to happen until a long period of time, just remember we're still in April. I mean, it's still April, and this is still part of that first kind of shutdown that they put on the United States. So I'm very optimistic, and I think a lot of coaches are optimistic. Basically everybody that I've talked to in the coaching world has said that it depends on what the government says, obviously, and what CIF says, but they're planning on getting everything started July 1st with some type of off-season programs, and they envision on playing a whole season, and they envision on starting on time. CIF released like plans and contingency plans just in case it doesn't work out like that, which I think is fair and safe to do, because you have no idea what's going to happen in terms of dates coming back. Nobody's an expert on this. Everybody's still trying to learn what this virus is doing, and anybody that really throws a date out there is just, you're not really using logic in a sense of either pro or against, positive or negatively, just because we don't know yet. It's kind of a day-by-day process and a week-by-week process. And, I've lived by the philosophy, at least during this month, it's like you can't really do anything until May 1st rolls around, and then you can kind of reevaluate and see where everything's at and slowly start putting things together. I like CIF's idea, especially for football, to make sure everybody gets their league games in, not shorten the season too much, eliminate the state playoffs if necessary. But based on everybody I've talked to, that seems to be like a last resort type of deal to try to get football going for the fall.
Now, Braden, of course, you're the play-by-play voice on 97.3 The Fan. We have games on Friday nights. Could you envision, you mentioned like a worst-case scenario, that games would be played, but that fans would be limited, where maybe every player only gets a few tickets for parents and friends? Could you see that happening possibly?
I think it's a possibility, just because football just brings in, you see it for every level. Football brings in a lot of money for athletic departments. I mean, you need football to fund your other programs. It's not as apparent, I think, in high school as it is in college, obviously. But I think there's a couple of things. One, if kids are not in school, by the time the fall rolls around, you can just kiss the football season goodbye in general. I don't think we're going to be in a place by that point where you're not going to have crowds at games. I think it's going to be definitely by that point in time, you're going to be able to do that. In terms of, if you're able to have kids on campus and play football, but you can't have fans in the stands, I think that's just too much of a nightmare to deal with. And I think if it's at that point, I don't think they end up playing, and I think they just keep pushing it back until they can. It's not like the NFL or Major League Baseball or any of the professional leagues, or even college for that matter, that rely on television money. I mean, none of these high schools rely on anything televised, so they don't necessarily have to play. They can keep pushing it back to a certain point. But for me, I think school is going to be good to go in the fall. Just thinking optimistically and based on the data that I've seen in terms of numbers, in terms of new cases, in terms of deaths, in terms of all that, it seems like we're on a nice trajectory here to finish this thing up. But I envision kids to be in school in the fall, and I envision them to be playing football if there's kids on campus. And if there's kids if you are able to have kids on campus, I mean, that is a large gathering. I mean, most of these schools have at least 1,000 kids. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of people every single day that you have to worry about, plus all the teachers who might be at risk, or maybe older teachers. I mean, it's a lot of things that you have to factor in terms of opening up schools. And the fact that a lot of these professionals are saying you'll probably be able to open up schools, I think is a big sign. I can't envision them. I mean, aside from a certain amount of games in San Diego, we're not like breaking ginormous attendance records at these things. I mean, if you got enough people to be at school and you approve to have 1,500 kids at school, I can't envision a situation where you don't have people allowed to go to games. Again, that is so far down the road, it's hard for us to predict. I mean, we don't even know. I mean, they could have like a new antibody test out tomorrow, and it could, drastically change the course of what we're doing. So it's only April 27th. We still got to get through May, June, July, August, and then kind of make a decision back then. I know CIF probably has a plan of a certain date of when they want to, put different plans into attack. But right now, as much as we don't like it, it's a patient game, and it's a waiting game for a lot of us in terms of determining, when we're going to start, when we're going to, get things going. And unfortunately for CIF and high school football officials, it really depends on the government of California. I mean, they have the ultimate say at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was pretty much the sentiment that John Levita spoke about just before I came on here in the weekly softball coaches Zoom meeting. He was saying that he doesn't, foresee them hopefully not pushing the football season into spring. He doesn't foresee that. You were talking about, he mentioned the possibility of getting rid of the regionals and state playoffs, so that gives them the extra 2 weeks to try and play, the regular season and, local championship games, and then just cancel the state playoffs for this year. You know, like you said, it's a waiting game, and you know he emphasized that tonight.
Well, for me, the sign is going to be when
Be a
Braden
waiting
shaves
game.
off his
I don't
beard.
envision him going in
Yeah.
the spring either.
Yeah.
If there's no football by a certain time in the fall, they just won't play. I mean, again,
Yeah.
it's not like. I mean, they do need. I mean, it does fund a lot of money for athletic departments and what have you, especially for the bigger programs. But I just don't. I mean, if you're CIF, again, it's like, you know, it's better safe than sorry. We'd probably just cancel it. But I don't envision that happening. I think we're going to be in. I think we're going to be in good shape. And you know, I'm gonna say, you know, and again, being optimistic about it, and just based on, you know, my knowledge of what's going on and what people have told me. It sucks right now, but like in September, when I see all you guys on the football field, we're gonna look back and be like, how you know, how crazy was it that we were back here in April, you know, dealing with this. But then, you know, it's gonna get better eventually. I don't ever see. I never bought into the shut the world down until 2021. I mean, the fact of the matter is, everybody in the world is working on trying to stop this right now. I mean, every doctor, I mean, they're trying to figure out a way to stop this. Things are getting sped up very quickly. So, I mean, I saw a report from Major Garrett today on Twitter about one of the vaccine studies they're doing at Oxford over in you know, the United Kingdom, and they're saying that they could have that running by September. I mean, that is way fast for a vaccine, and they got to pass through a lot of hurdles. But it sounds more realistic that you can get a vaccine sooner and sooner. But that being said, I don't think you're going to need a vaccine in order to play football in the fall.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a news cycle is 24 hours long, Braden. We have a lot to talk about. We get off the deep end sometimes when really we're just going to try to get back to normal and try to protect the most vulnerable of our population, because that's what we should be doing. We should be helping these people live longer, lead better lives, have better health care, be healthy. And, you know, it's all a big social question to a certain extent. But, Steve, you better get me off the COVID meter here.
No, I just kidding Modi before the show that with the people are getting COVID everywhere now, but it is an important topic. You know, it's funny with what we're talking about. I thought it was interesting. This Saturday night, as y'all know, I go to, well, right now it's online, but I go to church at Saddle Mountain Community Church in Oklahoma with Pastor David Jeremiah. I'm not going to say it exactly like he did, but I thought it was interesting what he said in his sermon Saturday night. It's like right now we're all resetting, and the question is, how is it going to be? How is everybody going to be when we're up and going again? Because this is kind of like a time where we're all just getting to stop and think about what's going. I mean, we've got a lot more time. Like, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we had a guest on, Mark Gleason, and I told you one day I called Mark and I asked if he had a minute. He said, "Are you kidding? I have all day." And we're all that way right now. But the question is, what are we going to be like when it gets going again? For instance, like Braden, what's the new normal going to be?
New normal. I mean, here's my thing on it, and it happens all the time, and whether or not we want to admit it or not, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, it's gonna be probably a short period of time of people being extra cautious, wearing masks, you know, doing that sort of social distance thing. But I don't think it's gonna take that long for people to go back to what they were doing. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. This is what people do. I mean, we've had so many different disasters. We've had so many different things go throughout history, and eventually, you know what happens? People forget about it. And they go back to living their life, and they just go back to, you know, reliving, you know, and living the way that they were living before. I mean, we've been doing that for, you know, thousands of years. It's just, you know, the way we are. Is there going to be probably more people inclined to maybe get a flu shot in the fall? Probably. I would imagine a lot of people will probably be a little extra careful in terms of washing their hands and hygiene and that sort of thing. I mean, it's a bunch of things that they should already be doing, right? I mean, think about it. It's like, and I've heard people talk about this before. I mean, everybody's freaked out about the coronavirus, and they should be. I mean, it's no joke. It's not you know, it's not something to laugh about. But the majority of people out there don't get flu vaccinations, and like the flu season can be just as devastating as any type of pandemic. So, I mean, I think at the beginning, it's going to be, people are going to be extra cautious. I think when they start allowing people to go to sporting events, there's going to be a lot of people that might think twice about going. There might be a lot of people that might think twice about going to a restaurant and what have you, but they're eventually going to get back into it. And I think we're going to go back to living the lives that we've been living. I don't know what's going to hold for future cases of a pandemic that breaks out. I don't know, in terms of what the government's going to do in order to slow those down. But everybody's talking about a new normal. I mean, the fact of the matter is it's going to be weird for a little bit, but I think eventually once everything starts getting opened up, it's going to get back to the way things were. And that's just, how it's been for so many years throughout history. And you see it with all the different pandemics that we've had, and we've seen it with all the different, disasters that we've had and attacks and all that jazz. I mean, I don't see a situation for the rest of time you're going to have your temperature checked before you go anywhere. I just don't. That might be a new thing for a little bit, but that's not going to be a thing for life. I don't think that's going to be a thing for the rest of time. People like to make comparisons. I mean, they compare it to like the big, like when 9/11 happened, drastically changed how we conducted during travel. I mean, our security now is unbelievable, but you can't compare. I mean, these things that you can't compare the coronavirus to the flu. I mean, it's two totally different things. You can't compare this to 9/11. You can't compare this to, you can't even really compare it to the Spanish flu. I mean, there's just so many different factors based on that pandemic and this pandemic. It's just there's so many things that people just want to compare things to when in reality it's totally different. That being said, I don't really envision there being that too long of a time in terms of a new normal. I mean, we might have a new normal for like a year or two, but I'm telling you, like 5 years from now, it's probably not going to be nearly as bad as what it is right now. And I think a lot of people for amount of time might slowly start to forget about it. But that's just my opinion. That's based on, history. I was a history minor in college to give you any sense of what I'm talking about. But the thing is, we don't really know. And again, it's still April 27th. There's a lot to be seen. I mean, we're still getting antibody tests back. And with every antibody test back, it seems that more and more of us were exposed to this than we originally thought, which means the death rate's really down. So there's a lot of positives coming out. I try not to watch too much of the news because, we're all members of the media. We know how the news works. They're just trying to get you to watch, right? So what do they get you to watch with? Drastic doom and gloom. The world, the sky is falling all the time. So I encourage people to form their own opinions. I encourage people to look at the data. I encourage people to use their mind and not have somebody tell them exactly what's going on, including myself. So, do your own due diligence, do your own homework. Watch multiple news outlets if you're going to watch the news, and kind of compare and contrast the different ones and kind of formulate your own opinion. I think that'd be the best advice in terms of this deal. But long answer short, I think a new normal might be for a couple months, but I don't envision it being a long-term thing.
Hey, for anybody that worries about, if you're listening to the left news or the right news, I just listen to whichever one is on until they play the Cards for Kids commercial on Sirius. Then I switch it to the other one. So you want me on the left? You want me on the right? 1-800-CARS for Kids. Get it out of here. When I change the channel.
Good morning. Lean to the left.
Anybody
lean to
know
the
what I'm
right,
talking about?
Yep, lean to the left, lean to the right, stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight. Can't wait till we hear that. Hey, Braden, we just talked about the new normal. If this were 2 months ago under the old normal, tonight you'd be doing the pregame and postgame show most likely on 97.3 The Fan for the Cardinals or the Padres. I'd be doing stats with Fox Sports San Diego. We're obviously not there. But as you know, Jeff Passan came out with a very lengthy story today on ESPN.com about the possible start of the baseball season. And he was talking about he could see teams going back to spring training in June and playing July, August, September, October with playoffs in November. I don't know if you saw that story at all, but do you agree with that? Could you see that happening, what Passan was talking about?
I see a lot of things happening, and based on the people I know in baseball, they're kind of waiting it out right now before they can make a decision. And I think a lot of sports leagues right now are waiting to see what Texas and Georgia, Oklahoma, and some of these states that have already started to open up. And I think in particular Texas and Georgia, because they're they're kind of grabbing the bull by the horns and they're going full go. I'm not going to tell you my opinion. I mean, obviously, going from quarantine stage to phase 3 seems like a very aggressive approach if you're the state of Georgia. And I'm all for everybody opening up and getting things going. But to go from 0 to 60 that quick, I think is a little concerning. But here's the deal: if you're watching and you watch Georgia and you watch Texas and Florida and all these states that start opening up, and all of a sudden they don't get a huge spike, and they don't see a new, and with their hospitals are not overloaded, as long as their hospitals are staying low and they're not putting the force on the healthcare providers, I could see a lot of states just kind of following suit. It's like, hey, look, Georgia did this for a week and a half, 2 weeks. They haven't had a jump in deaths. They haven't had a jump in cases, despite maybe testing more. I think that's a big factor in whether or not sports come back sooner rather than later. My original prediction was this when it comes to baseball, and I'm going to stick with it until it doesn't happen. But I thought mid-May baseball would start doing their spring training type camp. Because if you think about it now, and in that Jeff Passan article, he talks about they could feasibly right now play in 7 different states.
Sure.
Based on the stay-at-homers that are lifted. Now, that's not feasible. You're not going to move everybody over. It's too hard to do. But you could do that right now on April 27th in 7 different states. By the time mid-May rolls around, when I don't know what's going to happen. It could get worse, could get better. I mean, you might be in a situation where you can have half the teams in Florida and half the teams in Arizona. And remember, they said they wanted to do 3 to 4 weeks of camp again. So they're going to have to redo that. And if you're baseball, that's a good opportunity to knock out all the games that you need to knock out where you can't have fans there. I mean, that's an extra 4 weeks. I mean, by that time, if you start looking at the phases that the government rolled out, I mean, there's a lot of states that could be in phase 3 and have large gatherings. All of a sudden, you can start having people at your games come June and July. I mean, then all of a sudden now, if you're baseball, you're like, all right, we are able to start June 1st. We got our camp done in the middle of May. And then in July, we can start having people start showing up to games. I mean, it's all kind of working out in its parts. I do think there's going to be something weird with the schedule this year because I think they're going to want to play as many games as humanly possible. I can see them doing an expanded playoff. The one that Jeff Passan put out today, I do not see feasible. I just think it's just way too much work to have everybody in it, do all these round robins and play through November. But I do see them doing a potential play through October, and then start the playoffs in November, be done by Thanksgiving, kind of a one-time thing, or changing the schedule drastically in some sort of manner. It's not going to be the same 162 that we're used to. They'll either be double headers. There'll be a shortened season, or they'll just be an expanded playoff. But they're going to do whatever it takes to try to get as much of that TV revenue back that they're missing out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the baseball execs are going to get real itchy once those KBO games start coming on TV this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Because if you're the tough sport right now is baseball, because baseball has a clock. If you're baseball, you got to get things done by a certain time because you have weather. And then if you start playing November, then you got to start picking out neutral sites. So I can't imagine like November rolling around and you got the Yankees potentially in the World Series and they're playing, let's just say some other let's say they're playing the Cubs. And then, you're at a point where you can have fans in the stands and you got to play that series in Los Angeles. I just don't see that being something that they want to do. So the sooner they can start, the better for them. Baseball is kind of a socially distant sport. I mean, you're not really spending too much time next to anybody during it. Granted, you all touch the same ball at certain spots, but it's not the most social distant sport, but it's one of the more socially distant sports. You could definitely play baseball without fans in the stands, and you can get the games rolling. But again, if you're baseball, you have a time frame where you have to get everything squared away because you need to start your entire season. If you're the NHL and you're the NBA, you can kind of sit back and wait because you got, 10, 15 games left in the regular season that you probably just can if you wanted to. Plus, you don't have to worry about playing in situations where you have to deal with weather. You both play indoors. You could play the playoffs, in front of nobody if you needed to and have it on TV. And the other thing, too, that people aren't really fully understanding is, yes, let's say they push the NBA back and they finish their season in August and they got to gear up for December 25th. If you remember correctly, Adam Silver's a guy that wanted to start on December 25th normally. I mean, he wants to just move the season back in general. So this might work out great for the NBA. And you're talking about a new normal. You might have the NBA from here on out start on December 25th and then roll through and compete with baseball in the summer and end in August. So that way you don't have to compete with the majority of the NFL. You get basically the entire spring to yourself, and then you compete with the beginning part of baseball. As much as I love baseball, I know you guys love baseball. You got the option between watching a game in April between the Padres and the Rockies, or you're watching a game that means something in a playoff chase in the NBA. I mean, I'm watching that playoff game. It means more. So it's a pretty good move for the NBA in that sense. So I'm really curious to see what they do, and I think we're going to know very shortly within the next couple of weeks when sports are going to gear up. I mean, think about this. Governor Cuomo, the governor of New York, I mean, his state was hit the hardest. And he's eager to have Yankee and Mets baseball play as soon as possible. I mean, he says it. He flat out says it. So, and that's without crowds. And then you get to Garcetti in Los Angeles, and he's doom and gloom guy saying we're not going to see sports for another year. So, it's hard to listen to the politicians over and over again because, again, regardless of what they say, they're going to have their own political agenda because they want to, they don't want to be the guy that won open too early, and they don't want to be the guy that lost a lot of votes. So you kind of have to make your own opinions. But I'm really curious to see what these sports leagues are doing. Again, just remember that every sports league right now is working with the CDC. So if they're signing off on these teams potentially, or these leagues potentially starting up and opening up facilities at the beginning of May, that's probably a really good sign for the rest of the summer.
Now, Braden, it's interesting. We're talking about leagues and all. One league that I have no doubt that will play this year is the NFL because, as you know, every team just off TV money makes a fortune. I mean, if you didn't bring in a dime from anything but TV money, every NFL team would be fine. They will play. The NFL will play this year. Worst case scenario, I'm going to run something by you because you spent some years in Texas at TCU. In Dallas, a local TV guy said if there were no fans, they could play the NFL season, or at least start it just in the Dallas area because you have so many stadiums. You have a couple in Frisco, you got Jerry's World, you got the Cotton Bowl, you got TCU, you got SMU, you got North Texas up the road. You can play 7 games on Saturday, 7 on Sunday, your Monday game and your Thursday game. Don't you think no matter what, the NFL will play this year just because there is so much money at stake with TV?
Well, I think the NFL is going to play in general because I think we're going to be back and running by that time. But if let's just say it's right. Let's just say like right now, the rules that we have in place and the way the coronavirus is exactly what it's going to be come NFL time. Let's just say for case in point, the National Football League will find a way to play. I mean, that's just they will find a way to play because the money that they're. I mean, they found a way to do the draft. They found a way to do the free agency. They're going to find a way to play. They'll figure it out. So, I mean, the Texas idea is kind of funny. I mean, I think it's clever. There's a lot of different ways that you can come up with these ideas and these contingency plans. Luckily for the NFL, they got the most time on anybody because they can figure out exactly. They have enough time to see one when leagues start up again, and two they can they got enough time to put it together. I would go. Again, this is just my opinion, and so I can't tell the future, but. I mean, I'm 95% sure the NFL starting on time. If I had to pick a sport in the fall that won't start on time, it would be college football, just because if they ain't going to school, you can't expect them to go play football as much as they need the money for it. And the camp that involves, playing with college kids. That would be the only doubt I have. But again, I think we're going to be in good shape by the time the fall rolls around. But again, my prediction of being very positive is the same as some prediction of somebody saying we're not going to be able to open for 3 years. It's the same thing because neither of us really don't know anything, including a lot of people making decisions right now because there's no – I mean, they're still figuring this thing out. And again, it's April 27th, so we can't set dates until we start reevaluating come May. But again, I based on everything I've seen and everybody I've talked to, including my own doctor for that matter, I'm very optimistic about we're going to have sports sooner rather than later.
I thought the generally positive reviews for the NFL draft were pretty much right on. I thought maybe I just always want something different, and that's what we got, the spontaneity of it. But I don't know. I think Canepa had it right today. I think some of the national columns had it right. I thought the seeing the kids at home with their parents, that was the highlight. Rather than, because of the technology, they showed way more families than they have in past years. And I just thought that was the best part of the whole thing. That and Bill O'Brien cussing out the Lions.
And what about Moni? I thought the best part of it all was how about Bill Belichick's dog?
Yes, well, people said who's been making those 6th round picks all these years? Auto draft.
It wasn't Bill Belichick. We obviously saw a doggone it. We saw it was the dog. But, it did bring out the personality of the NFL, though, when you saw Bruce Arians sitting there in shorts or the second 8 people had their kids with them and all that. I just actually thought I enjoyed that more than having a bunch of screaming drunks there, to be honest with you. And I'm sure they'll go back to the screaming drunks next year if they can, but maybe they can incorporate some of that because I just thought it showed a lot of personality.
Braden, why do 800,000 people go to a draft?
Yeah.
Do they really, or is that they're just making that up? Is that Trumpistan?
I don't know why you'd have that many people at the draft. I mean,
Do people really go?
Yes.
Yeah.
I see a lot. I mean, the one in Nashville looked like it was packed, and it ruined a lot of bachelorette parties I was told. So, for me, the draft. I mean, the draft would be cool to go once. I think as a fan, just to say I went. But for the draft, for me, I mean, I'm just not as involved with the draft after the Chargers left. I mean, I don't have a team anymore. So it's like I'm not like living and dying with every pick. I mean, I kind of jumped on the Cowboys bandwagon, if you will. I lived out there, so that became my new team to a certain extent. But it's still about the same. I mean, I enjoyed the draft. I thought this draft was a lot more entertaining. I thought they did a really nice job. Aside from missing out on the atmosphere of people being at an event and kind of making it as big as it is, I really enjoyed seeing the players with their families, and we see that a lot on day 2 and day 3 anyway. But I thought it was even cooler to see the general managers, the owners, the coaches make their picks from their house and seeing their family work with them. I mean, you got like
high five of the kids.
Yeah.
And, the wife's bringing Gatorade and stuff. And it's kind of it really humanizes, some of these guys that we forget are humans sometimes because we see them and we just think they just coach all the time and they got families too. I guarantee you a lot of those guys probably really enjoyed spending time with their family as they were doing their work because
way better.
I mean, right now, this is the time of the year or when you're in draft prep, you don't see your family. You don't see your family from like the combine through the Super Bowl. I mean, that's just it. I mean, you just don't, see your family during that time. These guys live at the office. This is probably fantastic for a lot of people in the NFL. They get to work from home. They get to spend a lot more time with their family than usually.
No, I think that's cool and everything. But, if I was a player, don't get me wrong, I thought it was a pretty cool presentation that they did. But it's kind of like graduation. You want to walk up on the stage if you're a first-round draft pick and shake the commissioner's hand and hold up the jersey and, be celebrated that way. Don't get me wrong. I thought what they did was really cool. I think, but I don't know. I if you're a player, I don't know. Like I said, if I was going into the NFL, that's one of the things you always dream of, having watched it, for 25 plus years. I'd be like, man, I want to walk up on that stage wherever, whether it be Vegas or MSG in New York, and be able to hold up the jersey of and shake the hand of the commissioner.
And they've turned around and said they're going to go right back to Vegas in 2 years. So, yeah, they're going to stick with the format, certainly.
But don't you think, Moni, that's a good point, but don't you think, I mean, when they do, what's good about this year, though, I think they'll start incorporating some of that into it, too. Although, I mean, the people won't, like the coaches and all, won't be at home, but hopefully they can do something to show personality. Maybe if they tape the coaches at home a day or two before the draft for their families, because I just thought seeing the families and, again, seeing Belichick's dog or Arians in shorts or whatever, I just thought that added a lot of personality to what can sometimes be a very stale draft. Plus, you saw the ratings were way up, best ratings ever, but, of course, why? Because it was kind of like the first live sports event in 6 weeks, except there was a live sports event this weekend. There was bull riding in Guthrie, Oklahoma. They did do a show. It was on the CBS Sports Network. They did a show, empty arena. And one thing I will say about, about the bull riding, about the rodeo, being a Lakeside guy, you got to love it because beforehand it's very patriotic. They play the national anthem. They stand at attention, stuff like that. So if you're a Lakeside guy, you have to love it.
And the rodeo is just this past week. They did have to cancel this year's Lakeside Rodeo. Braden, you can't swing by beef and bun on the way to the rodeo grounds. But
yeah, exactly.
Speaking of formats, I got one for Braden. How many sports radio stations can San Diego have?
Oh man, I don't want to talk about it too much.
All right.
I find it very hard to have I mean, multiple sports radio stations in a town that only has one sports team. So, in general, I mean, it's just kind of odd. But I mean, we're doing a really good job, and 1360 is getting a lot of listeners too. And surprisingly enough, there's people that want to listen to some type of sports talk. So,
I do something with that big stick.
Right, and but I guess the new one coming back, or the one that you say coming back, is more of like lifestyle station. So I think it's going to be more of a guy station, kind of talking about sports, kind of talking about other things. But it's more competition, I guess, and I'm all for competition as always. But 3 sports stations in San Diego seems it's very interesting to me. And obviously, I'm not the guy that makes the decisions on that sort of thing. So. They think it's going to work out, and maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. Who knows? You never know.
Now, Braden, with the situation what it is now, how does it work? Like on Coach Quintero's show, like are you in the studio and he's at home, and how do you handle phone calls and stuff like that? How does that all work now?
So I'm running the whole show behind the scenes at the studio. There's only throughout the entire day, I think there's 6 people total throughout the entire day that are in that building. So it's me during the midday. It's Paul Reindels in the morning with Ben and Woods. Matt Scraby's in the afternoon. That's just on the fan. And then the morning show producer for KSON is there. And the morning show producer for Sunny's there in the morning, and then they're gone. And then we have at least one engineer on staff at some point during the day before they bail. So it's very slim over there. I mean, a lot of people are like, at least you get to get out of the house and go to work. And, I'm thankful for my job, but it's not. I was telling one, coworker the other day, and I was like, hey, because she's working at home. And I said, look, I mean, it's not much different from you working at home, aside from the fact I jump in a car. I mean, I'm just going, it's the same thing as just going out to a hangar in my backyard, or going into a bomb shaft in my backyard, and just, being there, because I'm there by myself. I mean, I just go to work and I come home. It's not like I'm, exploring the world and doing different tasks throughout the day. It's just, get up, drive to work, get the work done, and then drive home. And that's about it. So I mean, I do get to, spend some time on the road where, some of the people in my family don't get to do that right now. And I know they're jealous of maybe just going for a drive. So
it's getting busier every day, Braden.
Yeah,
right, exactly. So, it's just different. We don't know when, I can see when Coach is going to come back. I mean, there's a lot of different. We don't know when they're going to let the on-air people come back. I mean, when we were shutting things down, it was March 12th. We decided to have half the building go home, so all the sales and all the people behind desks and stuff, and only the on-air people were there. And then for about a week and a half, the on-air people that were there, and then every DJ that could track it home, they set them up for working at home, and they've been working at home since, except for us skeleton squad guys left that are hanging in there and getting things going. I envision them probably when they start bringing people back. Again, it's a national company, so I don't know what they're going to do regionally or nationally, but I would imagine it's probably going to be a slow kind of comeback, just like it was a slow kind of get people to stay home. So I envision something like on-air people coming back. But then again, with Coach, he's up there in age, and he's got some underlying health conditions. So, he might have to get cleared by a doctor before he shows up. And
whoa, Coach watching?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I wouldn't want to put myself in a situation, where I might be asymptomatic and he's not, and get him sick somehow. So and that's just in general for a lot of people. So I'm curious to see how the whole run back comes, not only with my work, but I think a lot of other people's business as well.
Yeah, no, it should be. I just want to say, I mean, we should all not as be concerned with ourselves, but what we could do to others, and that's the way everybody really should be looking at it.
Yeah,
Right.
and
That's
Mark,
how I look at it. I mean, I'm 25 years old. I'm very healthy. I don't have any underlying health conditions. I'm somebody that could have, already had it and not even realize I had it. I mean, you just don't know. But it's at the same time, I could have it right now and not even have any idea. And I don't want to interact with people, like my grandparents or even my aunt that has underlying health conditions and accidentally give it to them. So I think it's more of me. I mean, I don't want to say I don't care about myself, but I'm not concerned about myself as much as I'm concerned about potentially giving it to somebody else, because at the end of the day, I mean, that I would feel responsible and I wouldn't want that on my hands. If I go out in my life and get sick on my own, I mean, that's my problem. I mean, I did that to myself, but I wouldn't want give it to anybody else who's trying to be extra cautious.
This is the burden society is going to be facing, Steve, over the next few weeks.
Oh yeah, because Moni, as you know, my wife works at a local hospital. Like the workers now, even when they go in every day, they take their temperature, and if it's not right, they'll send them home. And that brings up a question, Braden, that I was wondering too. Once fans do go to games again, I'm just wondering how far they will go. Like, after 9/11, how the security is now. So, okay, let's say fans start coming back to baseball games. Will they take everybody's temperature on the way in? And if you're sick, you're out of there because you could spread the virus or spread whatever. I know that sounds very, very far-fetched, but I thought it would have been very far-fetched after 9/11 if you told me what's going to happen. Braden, I'll give you a good example. A few weeks ago, you and Coach talked about Tony, the guy who died that was that did the media ramp for 50 years of the sports arena. I knew Tony very well, and every time I go in, it was, hey, Tony, how you doing, all that stuff. I would never forget the first time I saw Tony after 9/11. I come walking down, like, hey, Tony, how you doing? He's like, Steve, you can't go this way. You got to go the other way. And he was very stern because the way he had to be. But that's how 9/11 changed things. I'm just wondering, how will this virus change things again? Will people have to have the temperature taken on the way into the ball game? What's it going to be like? I don't know. Any ideas on that, or is that too far-fetched?
The only thing I don't understand with the temperature deal, and I understand people are being extra cautious, but if people are asymptomatic, which means they don't have a fever but still have it, how do you check for those people? I mean, and think about it this way. You could have somebody, because again, there's a lot of people, and it's different now, but like when they were first testing, they had a 90% rate of people that were testing negative for the coronavirus that had coronavirus symptoms. They ended up having something else. I mean, you could have the flu and have a little bit of a fever, and you wouldn't have the coronavirus. You get sent home, which, you probably shouldn't be out with the flu anyway. I mean, that's basically, causing the same problem. But, I mean, let's just say I walk through, I don't have a fever, I don't have any type of conditions whatsoever. How do you check for that person? I mean, at that point, it's like, I mean, it's like you have no idea. So to me, I think the temperature gauge is a little far-fetched because it's not like an end-all be-all like that person has it, because and the fact of the matter is they you don't know if they do or they don't, and there's more people that probably have it that don't even realize they have it, because based on the percentages we know and based on what doctors have told me, I mean, the majority of the people are going to get this, they're not even going to realize they have it. So if they don't even realize they have it and they have no type of symptoms, how do you test for that person to go in the stadium? That's why I think it's going to be a situation where when they officially let people back in, they might have the thermometer thing for a little bit just to make people feel safe. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make any sense to me, to do that. The other thing, too, is like what people are asking for is you have to test everybody every single day before they go to work. That's 330 million tests a day. That's just not feasible. It's not possible. And the other thing is it's not really helping you at all. I mean, I could roll into work every single day of a week and not have it and get it one day, and all of a sudden we just wasted like 6 tests. So there's a lot of things that they're going to have to still figure out, and that's a good reason probably why they're not letting anybody have big events yet, and they're still trying to figure out a lot of those kinks because, quite frankly, I don't know how you prevent that. You could have the temperature thing, but at the end of the day, it's not really going to prevent everybody from going in there that's going to have the coronavirus. I mean, I think it's going to be a mix of things before they start letting people in. I think it's going to be a whether or not it's still hanging around type of deal. Whether we've surpassed the big number and we've been able to knock it out. I think a big reason for people to actually start going to games will be some type of remedy. And there's a lot of medicine that's on phase 3 of getting tested with the FDA and the CDC. And I think if you start getting that, you'll start being able to kind of limit or you can start to lowering high expectations of making things with temperature gauges and testing people and all that sort of thing. But until you start getting remedies and stuff or some reason, logical reasons to get people, prevent people from being asymptomatic going in, I think honestly the big thing you have to do is you're going to have to let the young people do it and the healthy people do it. And if you have underlying conditions or you're of age where you probably shouldn't be going out, you probably should just stay quarantined at that point until a herd immunity is brought up and keep the young people away from the old people. I mean, I think that's probably the best bet in terms of doing any type of large gathering. Just because, again, I think the biggest unknown is the fact that there are people that have it that don't even realize they have it, and there's people that have had it that didn't even know they were sick because they never felt sick.
Moni, you're the expert on this. Step in, please.
No, what he said at the end is exactly it. We're going to move forward, and we're going to look after those that we know we need to look after, and those people are going to have to take a long look at themselves and say, hey, can I go? They're still going to want to move around. I'm talking about those people who are at risk. Hey, I've got a doctor's appointment. That's a serious thing. You're going to have a family member drive you to your doctor's appointment. Try to avoid a big crowd. We're not going to stop at a restaurant. We're not going to, go to the pharmacy together. I'll go in. You stay in the car, or I'll go in. You go. We'll drive you home, and I'll go back. That's just the way it's going to be until there's either a vaccine or a burnout, and that's just the way we're going to proceed. And I don't think it's a bad way. We want to look out for these people, and that's who we want to take care of. We want to make sure we want to live our lives. Everybody wants to live their lives, and we're just going to have to look after the at-risk people moving forward. And that's the way we're headed. I think that's really what's broken. That's the news that's broken the last 24 to 72. That's where we're headed.
And the thing is again, I want to get back to doing my deal and living my life. But if I had underlying health condition or I was I would stay home. I mean, that's just what I would do. And you have the right to do that. Nobody's making you go back to work. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't want to go back and you don't want to, get out and you're a little cautious, you can stay home. That's fine. And that's everybody's right to make that decision. And I'm cool with that. And I'm not making anybody go out. But, eventually you're going to have to start rolling these things in. I mean, it's just there's a lot more consequences to our actions that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah, and a lot of people say, Steve, that when kids go back to school, that's kind of like really the real opening. That's like opening the economy. We could do all these other things, but once families get on track with their normal lives, which involves usually school from late August until early June or whatever, that's what makes the world go round. So
okay, so I actually have a non-coronavirus question because, we can talk about this all night, but I don't really want to. So, Braden, because you're a Cathedral Catholic guy, tell us about that killer schedule that the football team's going to be playing highlighted with De La Salle.
It's brutal, and I'm curious to see now. We're going to talk about it in a world that's safe to travel and non-coronavirus. They have 2 plane trips that they're going to have to take. They're playing in Vegas. They're going to play a team in Vegas that's ranked in the top 10 in Vegas. They're playing another team from Nevada that they got paired with for the Honor Bowl. I'm blanking on the 2 Nevada schools right now. And then we got to fly out to De La Salle up in Concord, and they're taking on De La Salle. It's going to be a home and home too, so De La Salle will come in here in 2021. They still got Corona Centennial on the schedule. They're going to have to go up to Corona to play that game. They got Helix on the schedule as well, which is going to be tough. East dropped them, so I can't remember. We picked up Steel Canyon. They picked up, which is great. I remember my first game every year was against Steel Canyon when I was rekindle that matchup, because that was always a fun back and forth matchup for the majority of the time. It was always a great week 1 matchup. This year won't be week 1, but the schedule's loaded, and then you get in the league play with Saints and Lincoln and Point Loma and Madison. I mean, it's tough in itself. Cathedral was able to drop the cross league game, so they were able to pick up another out of town team. But Coach Doyle in the last 15 years, man, he's not afraid to play anybody. He's going to go play them, and then that's what they're doing. They're going to Vegas. They're going to go play De La Salle. He's been trying to play De La Salle for the last 20 years. I mean, they've never been able to match up. They finally get to match up, so this is a big matchup for them. They are the sister school of Cathedral, so they always come down and check out our facilities. We always go up there and see how they run things. So it's finally on the schedule. It's going to be a challenge.
When Adam says the Dons have their own team plane, does he mean that they have a private charter to go to those games, or is there a big Cathedral Catholic Don on the side, Brady?
There's not. We don't have anything like that. In fact, the last time we traveled, we played Del Oro. My first year coaching there a couple years ago. We took the JV and varsity team up there, and we had 2 different Southwest flights that we had to buy tickets for kids to get And it was the boarding process was something else. And every coach was in charge of about like 10 kids that you had to get on the plane, and it was an experience. And we also traveled the same day as the game. And, the JV plane was after the varsity plane, so we got there after the varsity, and we had to play before they did, so it was kind of crazy.
Now, Braden, I have a question about, speaking of prep football. As you know, Helix, of course, Tyler Buckner, we saw him in the championship game last year, what he did, over 600 yards total offense, bringing his top receiver to Helix. Does anybody have a chance against Helix this year? Does Cathedral or anybody else have a chance against Helix? And is Helix definitely the team to beat this year, or what do you think?
I'd say Helix is definitely the team to beat, and my phone is at 5% battery, guys. So
all right.
I think they're the team to beat for sure. I said it last year. I thought they were the team to beat. I was the only one that voted for them in the top 10 at number 1. People were like, "Why aren't you voting for Cathedral or anybody else?" I'm like, "Because it's Helix, man. Helix is Helix, and Helix will always be the top dog until somebody says otherwise." And they were my number 1 to go into the season, regardless of Tyler Buckner or not. I think them getting Tyler Buckner is huge. It makes that team 10 times better, I think. I think Tyler Buckner is the real deal. We now get to see what he's going to look like against better competition. I mean, that seems to be the big question with Tyler Buckner. I think they're really good against El Camino. I think he's a tremendous athlete. But there's a difference between playing a team like El Camino once and playing a schedule that Helix has to play over and over and over again. I think he's up for the challenge. I think he's going to do fine. I think he's going to, really test himself playing at Helix. I think it's a great move for him. I think it's a great move for Helix as well. But at the end of the day, they're all high school kids just like everybody else. And you can't saying nobody else has a chance. I think it's a little far-fetched. Everybody's got a shot. That's the beauty of football. The best part about football, and unfortunately, it's, people go down. And you're not going to have the same team you're going to have week 1 as you have week 9. That's just a matter of fact. You're going to lose people. I mean, Cathedral lost a handful of guys last year. Helix has lost guys over the last, handful of years as well. Guys get banged up. Players get banged up. They're all under the age of 18, so you never know what you're going to get out of some kids. There's so many factors when you're talking about high school kids in general. I mean, NFL player breaks up with his girlfriend. He's professional. And he's good to go. High school kid gets dumped after school dance. I mean, he might be ruined for a week. I mean, there's so many factors you have to factor in with high school kids. I think it's gonna be a fun season. Again, like I said, guys, I think we're going to be playing a full season. I think all of us are going to be someplace on a Friday in August, covering a game in front of people.
And I guess we'll have to follow.
I think that's what we're going to have, and hopefully, I'm celebrating a good Don's Week 1 victory after that, and calling a game with Coach Quintera and Dolan. And hopefully,
I'll be there.
Make our way out to El Cap.
Let's go to El Cap. Braden, let's go to El Cap. Let's go to. Remember, if it's Friday, August 21st, that's my birthday. That could be my 65th birthday present. Get to go to a football game at my alma mater. My gosh, it wouldn't be any better than that.
We're gonna get El Cap out of the way August 21st to get a good. Well, you gotta let me know who they're playing, but we'll go.
Okay,
We'll go hang out at Eastbound before the game, and then call a good El Cap football game out there in Lakeside. How's it sound?
That's right. I'll meet you at Eastbound. There's nothing like a Friday night in Lakeside.
Absolutely, especially with that gorgeous new sign you guys put in. That's fantastic.
I'll be at Mary's. I'll be at Mary's.
You think, with as big as high school is starting to get a little bit bigger here in San Diego, you think more people will, I heard a couple people talking about this online, saying that rating, like you guys probably get decent ratings for the, for your high school coverage, I'm assuming, on the radio. Do you think that will bring the community together with not having the sports, high school football? Do you think it'll be more community oriented this year? Because
the biggest season ever.
You go out to, El Cap or Lamoni, you see, 3,000 plus people at a game on a Friday night. I mean, do you think that, like you said, Cathedral, they'll have a couple thousand people at a football game?
Well, Cathedral have 10,000.
I think we've done a really good job at 97.3 The Fan at promoting high school football. We get a lot of people that weren't even really in high school football that are now into it, which is fantastic. It's actually really helped out our numbers on our regular talk shows as well. We're getting a lot of people tuning in from areas that we did high school football games. That's we made fans for life. So I think it's going to be a big community thing this year. I think a lot of people are going to engage. I think it depends on how the summer goes, but come fall rolls around, and more people, I think the more time is spent with people not interacting and wanting to get out, I think the fall is going to be a great opportunity for a lot of people that are finally starting to come out of their shell, maybe getting out for the first time. I think it's a great opportunity for them, and a nice, like Marty was saying, with opening up the schools, kind of reopening up the economy, and I think a lot of people are going to want to do things regardless after this thing is over, and one of them might be go catch a high school football game, and I think that's going to be the case.
I'm really in a good mood after this hour, Steve.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you what. Braden's going to have to leave us in a minute. But Braden, one thing, you should be proud of me. Even in my age group, a couple weeks ago, I got a new app, radio.com. You got to love that,
You
right?
just got it, Braden.
Because the games are on radio.com.
All right, guys. I got to head off. I appreciate being on. Thanks again for having me on anytime.
Thanks so much, Braden. We really appreciate Braden Surprenannt from 97.3 The Fan being with us. And thanks to everybody for being with us tonight. Thank you so much to Adam Paul from EC Preps and to Ramon Scott from EastCountySports.com. And Ramon, I'm sorry I was giving you a bad time about the coronavirus before we went on the air, because I know that's what we talked about a majority of the time, but really do appreciate your expertise on that.
Braden cheered us up, didn't he? I mean, that was even a more optimistic outlook than I have. So
yeah, and you're Mr. Positive.
I just think that not like they were talking about on the the Zoom meeting I was on, and then also from talking to people online. I just think it's going to be a more tight knit community. Whenever we open back up and able to do prep sports, because I can totally remember going to an El Cap game where there's 3,000 plus people.
Yeah. And you know what, Adam? The best part about the games we do on 97.3 The Fan and radio.com is when we go out to East County and get our updates from Adam Paul of VC Preps. That's the best part of those Friday nights. Appreciate that, Adam. Hey, I know it's time to we got to get going. We've been on for about an hour, but again, we want to thank everybody so much for listening. Again, Adam Paul from EC Preps, Ramon Scott from EastCountySports.com. And Ramon, thanks again for getting us on the air tonight. Thanks to all of our listeners, and everybody have a good night.